What's up, everybody? It's Logan Fast, your favorite student physical therapist from The Ohio University, and today I'll be demonstrating how to properly perform a dependent two-person transfer with the patient started lying supine on the bed to sitting in the wheelchair to lying supine on the floor, and then the return. This is a patient care skill technique that's often utilized as a last resort when it's necessary to move a patient from the bed to the floor and there's no other available or readily accessible medical equipment nearby. Safety precautions include the use of appropriate manual contact techniques as well as proper body mechanics to minimize the risk of injury for the patients or the healthcare providers themselves. Something to note here is because Trent is taller than me, he'll be positioned at the head of the patient so he can assume proper body mechanics easier. Finally, the patient is assisted in crossing their arms prior to each step of the transfer so as to improve their overall stability and comfort during the procedure. For the first step of the transfer, we'll be moving the patient from lying supine on the bed to sitting in the wheelchair. The healthcare provider at the head of the patient will actively assist the patient in crossing their arms and then slowly raise the patient to an upright sitting position, supporting the neck and the lower back region. We'll then go ahead and reach underneath the patient's armpits, gripping onto the opposite wrist for stability. The other healthcare provider at the foot will face the bed and place one hand under the distal thigh of the patient and the other underneath the leg. On the verbal cue of lift, we'll both simultaneously lift and move the patient over to the wheelchair. 1, 2, 3, scoot. 1, 2, 3, lift. For the next part of the transfer, we'll be moving the patient from sitting in the wheelchair to lying supine on the floor. The healthcare provider at the head of the patient is again going to actively assist the patient in crossing their arms and then reach underneath the armpits to grip onto the opposite wrist for stability. The other healthcare provider at the foot of the patient will squat down, assuming proper body mechanics, and reach with one hand placed under the distal thigh and the other underneath the leg. On the verbal cue of lift, we'll both lift the patient. On move, we'll move the patient over, clearing the wheelchair, and then finally we'll lower the patient safely down to the floor. 1, 3. 1, 2, 3, lift, move, lower. Finally, the healthcare provider at the head of the patient will slowly lower the patient onto the ground, supporting the neck and lower back region. Next, we'll begin the return portion of the transfer by moving the patient from lying supine on the floor to sitting in the wheelchair. The healthcare provider at the head of the patient will actively assist them in crossing their arms and then slowly raise them to an upright position, supporting the neck and lower back region. We'll then reach underneath and grip onto the opposite wrist for stability, while the other healthcare provider at the foot of the patient will squat down again and reach underneath, one hand under the distal thigh, the other under the leg. Same 3 verbal cues will lift, move, and then lower the patient into the wheelchair. 1, 3. 1, 2, 3. Lift, move, lower. For the last part of the transfer, we'll be moving the patient from sitting in the wheelchair to lying supine in the middle of the bed. Once again, healthcare provider at the head of the patient will actively assist them in crossing their arms and then reach underneath and grip onto the wrist. The other healthcare provider at the foot of the patient will squat down, same hand placement, one under the leg, the other under the distal thigh. Same verbal cues, so again, 1, 2, 3, lift, move. And then we'll go ahead and give them an extra scoot to center them in the middle of the bed. Finally, the healthcare provider will lower them down, placing their head on the pillow by supporting the neck and the lower back region.
Or just if you want a quicker transfer, yeah, and they go.